Hello, and thanks for joining me on a friend's introduction edition of the Rehab Corner this morning. I'd like to introduce you to my friend Lucy Goosey here, and I think the reason her name is Lucy Goosey is apparent, but I love this model because it actually moves unlike a lot of other anatomical models. And so I want to use Lucy to help illustrate what the pattern of the human pelvis is and a couple of different ways that we can compensate and change the pattern of the pelvis either to something more desirable or less desirable, and Lucy can help us illustrate that. So just to orient you, here's the leg bones, right, femurs. You have your pubic bone here in the front, have your ilium part of your pelvis bones, which is sort of where your hip pointers are, right there and there. Okay, that also has the part of the socket. Okay, the pubic bone has part of the socket, and then back here your sit bones are your ischium, and that's another part of the socket. And those three bones come together, or those three parts of this bone comes together, and that's your socket of your hip. Okay, then you have the base of your spine that sits in between those two bones. This is your sacrum, and this little wiggly guy here is the coccyx, and your low spine there. Okay. And so looking from the front, okay, this is the right side over here, and this is the left side. So most human beings come, and I'm going to exaggerate a little bit for demonstration, they come forward on the left. So here, left, they go forward, okay? Again, left, they come forward. And a forward pelvic position, as I explained a little bit in the sway back video, is not just an anterior tip pelvic position, but it's actually coming forward in three planes. So this is something I learned in PRI, but the forward position of the pelvis comes forward, out to the side, and then also out in that frontal plane. So it's coming forward, it's going out to the side in the frontal plane, and it's also rotating outwards in the rotational plane. So you have forward, out to the side, and rotating out. And so that's kind of that flared forward pelvic position on the left. And this is the standard for all of us. We're all kind of born that way. And as a result, the right side, as the left goes forward, it tends to tip backwards a little bit. And then it reverses the direction of all those motions. So it's extending back, right? It is coming in a bit, and it is also in the rotational plane rotating inwards. So in the side-to-side plane, it's coming in, and then rotationally, it's rotating back, okay? So we have forward, to the side, and rotating out. We have back coming in the side-to-side plane and rotating in. Okay, so that's the typical left forward, right back position, and in PRI they call that a left AIC pelvic position. And that's kind of how we all start out. Some of us get creative and we take this right side that's back and we try to get symmetrical by bringing it forward as well. And as you can see this from the back, when they're both forward, okay, they kind of wing out here, and they're wider in the back, and then down here in the pubic bone, some real funky stuff starts going on. Obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit with the degree of motion, but that is the pattern. And a person that goes from this to this, those are called PEC individuals, posterior exterior chained individuals. They overuse their back muscles and their lat muscles and a few other back of the body muscles, and they're really opening up the front of their cavity. So that person is very extended, especially through the low back, mid back, and the pelvis rotated forward. So you might be thinking, well, you know, is one worse than the other? Why do people get that way? And underlying all of us, because of the structural differences in the diaphragm, we're going to have a left pelvis that tends to come forward because our abdominal wall over here tends to be a little more lax, and the psoas muscle and iliacus muscles that attach into the diaphragm tend to be more active on the left side, pulling this forward, okay? And that's It's not bad, it just is, right? That asymmetry actually allows us a leg to start on. It allows us to have fluid motion. And now these PEC individuals that bring the right forward to match the left, they're typically doing that in adolescence. So it's not as though it's something you're necessarily going to stop. It's just a fact of how that person starts to move. And the difference between these two people is just that the posterior exterior chain people do a little extra compensation to bring the right side forward to match the left that's already forward. And those people are going to need a little bit extra help in the beginning of their program to get both sides back to neutral position from forward. And they're going to need a lot more abs and potentially a lot more breathing and a lot more hamstrings, right? Which I've kind of put in here, which would be back of the leg muscles. So this person is tilted forward in both planes. They're going to need a muscle here to pull the back down. And then in the front, you have abdominals, which are going to pull the front up. So you're pulling the front up, pulling the back down. That translates to a posterior tilt position of the pelvis, okay, but using hamstrings and abs, so we're not getting that tight butt that is undesirable, which is going to negatively impact the function of the pelvic diaphragm and not going to help us out. So that's just a quick summary. You've met Loosey Goosey here. The other thing is whether you're forward on the left or forward on both sides, when you come forward with your pelvis, okay, in order to keep you upright, your back has to extend. Okay, so that's why with all these PRI activities, you see hamstrings and abs tilting a pelvis back in this desirable position of flattening out that low spine relative to where it's at. We're not really going into extremes of flexion in the lumbar spine, but we are flattening it out to a more neutral position where your abs and hamstrings and all those muscles can work, and the compression in the spine itself is decreased. So that about does it for today's video. You've met Lucy. We'll bring her back in a subsequent episode to talk maybe more about other muscles of the hip region and pelvic diaphragm to correct some of these positions and what's happening there. But that was a little introduction. So say bye to Lucy. Thanks for watching today's video. See you next time.